Can you imagine a president of the United States sending a congratulatory letter, email, tweet to a man who cuts his schmendrick off? Well, I guess he really didn't do that. Everything's been changed. All definitions have changed. So we have a traitor in the White House who pretends he's a patriot. A man who has divided America like it's never been divided, who says one of his core principles is to never divide people. So a former athlete, age 65, decides he wants to live the rest of his life as a woman simply because he's a narcissistic egomaniac who belongs in a mental hospital. And the psychos at Vanity Fair put him on the cover, give him a 22-page layout to discuss his coming to grips with his feelings he's had about himself for years. And now that this psychopath is acting on those feelings, changing his name to Caitlyn, they give him a photo shoot with him dressed in several gowns and other women's attire. All of a sudden, psychopathic tweets come in from all over the world, from his family, some family, all sick in the head. And even the so-called president of the United States congratulates him on his courage in taking this brave step. That's a redefinition of the word courage, isn't it? Like redefining the word marriage. See where it's led to? Now we redefine the word courage. They changed the words courage and brave, just as the word marriage has been changed. And our society is taking these simple words, and for the purpose of elevating some perceived slighted minority, changing the actual meaning of words. We all know that marriage is a union between a man and a woman for the purposes of having a family and building a civil society. Well, now it's been changed by certain radical Marxists to mean a union between people in love. Well, what does that mean? What's love mean? The consequences of this are yet to be seen, as other unions will have to be recognized as marriage under this new definition. Now bravery and courage will have to be reevaluated. Remember when it took courage to see that your nation and family were under attack and stepping up to defend them at the risk of your own life? That was courage. That was bravery. Remember when bravery was running into machine gun fire to rescue a buddy who'd been cut down in fire? Ask someone who stormed Omaha Beach on D-Day, or Guadalcanal, or Anzio, or the Chosin Reservoir in Korea, or survived the Quezon shelling in Vietnam, or troops still alive who were at Fallujah or Ramadi. Ask those guys what bravery and courage mean. Or if you don't want to go that far, ask a cop on the street who has to face the vermin every day, to take out another Muslim trying to behead him, as just happened in Boston, or a fireman who has to run up a burning ladder to save lives. Ask them what it means to be brave, what to have courage. You know what those men would tell you? It was nothing. They would do it again if they were asked to do it. They're not looking for any special recognition at Vanity Fair or the media. Ask them if this crazed athlete did was brave or courageous, or the act of a psychopath. You know what they tell you? They fought and died for his right to be a psychopath and exhibit himself. Now that's bravery. And that's courage. And I keep bringing up the model I used in 1994. I was laughed at by a local newspaper. I remember when I started in radio, I said, America's dying because the leadership is decimating our borders, language, and culture. I was laughed at, even though I was a prophet. And now you got skirts out there copying everything I wrote over 21 years, making it into like an original, a skirt suddenly, a cross-the-leg job. I don't know, maybe I should become transgendered. Maybe my books would be covered on Fox News. Do you think that would work, Robert, if I became transgendered? Do you think that O'Reilly would have me on? Then they would have me on for Countdown to Mecca. They suddenly claim I was way ahead of the curve. But I don't think I'm going to have that happen, at least not in this life. By the way, speaking of transgendered, I really don't know any woman who wants to be 65. Why would anyone want to be a tranny granny? I still don't get that. You know what it's all about. It's about psychosis. You know it's a mental disorder. You know that it needed treatment. You know that in your day, the man would have been in a bug house, unless he was J. Edgar Hoover. Then he would have been running the FBI. But let's put that aside for the moment. What does it mean to be an American? And why should you have hope for America? I think I want to play some music. I want to hear Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, I Want You to Be My Girl. Or the Dells, Oh What a Night. Or the Moonglows, Secret Love. Or the Paragons, Let's Start All Over Again. I did the Shirelles, Dedicated to the One I Love. Or Robert and Johnny, We Belong Together. And then maybe I'll be ready to talk about some of the psychopathic news of the day. How did we go from men storming the beaches at Anzio to men having their schmendricks cut off to be a grandmother? Do you know anyone who wants to be a 65-year-old a woman at 65? Most women don't want to be 65. Why would a man want to be a 65-year-old tranny granny? I don't get it. answer. I know exactly. I know, please. So let me turn to something positive here. What it means to be an American. Look, we have to laugh at them. The only thing left for us is mocking the psychopaths and mocking the president for what he's doing to the country. Because the day we lose the ability to ridicule them or use sarcasm is the day America dies. It hasn't died yet. As long as we still have the power of sarcasm to put them down, ridicule them, skewer them, make them into the mockeries that they are, we are free people. Meanwhile, the world is changing so fast, almost no one can keep up with it. Whether it be Uber taking over the taxi business, do I have to, spell it out for you? Do I have to spell out for you what's going on? The change of everything in America from gender identity. Now we're talking about some freak's penis. How does a 65-year-old Jewish man like Howard Stern get away with wearing a disgusting wig? How? The same way Barack Obama can say that he's not a divider. Does it with no shame. How? Obama comes out the way Stern comes out. He ridicules cripples. He ridicules people who are handicapped, and people think it's humor. It's unbelievable to me what people get away with. Hey, different strokes for different folks. If you find that entertaining, you're a sick piece of garbage. That's all. So now I get attacked by a group called Right Wing Watch, and they say Michael Savage says, in my day, Caitlyn Jenner would be in a straitjacket. They find it offensive? To me, it's commonsensical. They make it sound like I said something crazy. I'll read it to you. Michael Savage yesterday offered a very reasonable take on Caitlyn Jenner's gender transition, telling listeners that she is, quote, mentally ill, psychotic, and jealous of his sick, ugly daughters. I still think it's true. And here's what he said. Quote, in my day, that's a mental illness. They're put in a mental hospital. They're given medication. They're put in a straitjacket. They're put in a locked ward, and they're guarded around the clock from hurting themselves or others, close quote. Savage said. He went on. In this demented, sick Western world of ours, this is now considered a lifestyle choice. He also called Jenner a symbol of, quote, the death of America and the nation's unraveling. I 100% think that that's true. I'm not ashamed of what I said. I stick by it. Does anyone disagree with me? And here's what else they're saying I said that's wrong. Quote, as Islam is rising, America is dying, Savage continued. As Christianity is being crushed around the world, what is rising? Islam. Why is it rising? It's not because the people who are joining Islam necessarily want to cut other people's heads off. It's because they're vomiting from the putrid garbage being spewed down their throats from the vermin of Hollywood, close quote. That's a reasonable statement. I wish I could say it again today. I mean, I don't know how I had the mental clarity yesterday to say that. So I had to quote myself from yesterday in order to say it today. I agree with those statements. And to be focused on a psycho like this, a narcissistic maniac like that, while the world is burning is unbelievable to me. It's about as real as Howard Stern's wig. A 65-year-old Jewish man wears a wig like that and gets away with it and makes a fortune? Yeah, only in America. And what does it show? He mocks people who are handicapped. That's considered entertainment in America today. I don't like being typecast. I don't like being stereotyped. I don't like being imprisoned. And I feel that it's important, as the world changes, that you understand who you're listening to and where I'm coming from. There's a far broader Michael Savage than you may know. Many people who hate my politics hate me because they don't know me. They have no idea who I am or what I've done or where I've been. And they don't care either. They'd rather destroy me than listen to me. But that's to their detriment. So if I make those statements about Bruce Jenner being a freak who belongs in a nut house, you have to understand where I'm coming from. It doesn't mean I have to go along with the flow just because society is degenerating. I do not have to degenerate with it. Or if I criticize Barack Obama, it's very easy to say he's anti-black, but you don't know anything about me. You don't know anything about me. You don't know I'm the only conservative on radio who defended blacks one year after another on this show. Nor do you care about it, whether it was Kobe Bryant falsely accused by that white trasher up in the mountains. Remember that one? Remember where I stood on that? You don't remember that. You don't have to remember that because your mind is made up. And that's sad. But my mind isn't made up. My mind is open. And in that sense, I'm the most dangerous man on earth, which is a free thinker. And also, by the way, the whole concept of being a free thinker is the most dangerous threat to any social order. It's the most dangerous threat to a power structure. And yet it's the only salvation for society. Because only by thinking freely can man free himself and others. Otherwise, we're just trapped in our own paradigms, becoming parrots of one side or another. And where does that get us? Nowhere. Nowhere. We sound like Nancy Grace on one side or the other. A mindless fool yattering for ratings, and I'm not going to fall into that. And so it leads us in a way back to the issue of fame and heroism. We're focused now on a degenerate who thinks that dressing up as a woman and making everyone look at him as a woman is the equivalent of being a hero. And because of the vermin in the media who have glorified this psychopath, this mentally ill individual, the children in our country are in grave danger of never knowing the difference between sanity, insanity, and what a real hero is. They're actually thinking that a fat person who waves her behind around on television for 5 years is a hero. They don't know what a hero is. In my day, a guy like Bruce Jenner would have been severely treated by psychiatrists or put in a mental hospital and guarded around the clock from hurting themselves or others. But now we have doctors who are so sick that they mutilate men, they mutilate women to convert them into a sex that they were not born to. This is not about homosexuality. This is about the mutilation of a human being. Now, I ask you, do you think that radical Islam is rising around the world in a vacuum? They're not rising around the world in a vacuum. This nation was once a torch of liberty to the world. This nation was once a torch of heroes to the world. This nation was once looked up to around the world. But since we put this demented anti-American into the White House, the nation has imploded. It has collapsed morally, militarily, any way you want to look at it. So therefore, when the nation collapses morally or socially, what rises up in its place? Well, Bruce Jenner. The putrid garbage being spewed by Hollywood has now produced a freak show where the freaks are now running America. That's right, freaks. Now, I challenge anyone listening to this show to tell me if the word degenerate or pervert still applies in this country. Tell me what a degenerate is. Someone who loves America? Tell me what a pervert is. Someone who loves America? They have turned the world upside down, and they're a very small minority. Make no mistake about it. The freaks and the perverts and the anti-Americans are a very small minority, and yet they are ruling over this nation. That is how a man as demented as Bruce Jenner can be held up as a symbol of something wonderful and wholesome. No, he's not wonderful and wholesome. He's a very sad, sick individual who is so desperate for attention that he would mutilate his body through surgery in order to attract your attention for a dying second. So it brings us back to who is your hero? What is a real hero? What is a hero? We have such a nut in the White House, such an incompetent nut in the White House. I just have this terrible feeling in my guts about the world right now because it's a little too quiet. And the country is so demented right now that we're looking at a man dressed up as a woman as though he's a hero. He is the opposite of a hero. Doesn't mean a man shouldn't dress up as a woman. He wants to do it. Why is this man held up on a pedestal as a role model? Who is your hero? Let's go to line number 2, WMAC in Georgia. Line 2, go ahead, please.
Mike, you are my hero because you get paid to spout nonsense and fiction for a living. You are my hero.
All right, fine, great. All right, what else is on your mind, sicko?
Well, I want to tell you. Who are you to define what a hero is?
Well, who are you to even question me? You're nobody. You're just calling from a prison cell somewhere. What have you ever done that anyone would pay attention to you? Who are you?
Who are you?
Who am I, idiot? I've written 30 books. I have a real PhD. I've traveled the world. I've saved rainforests. I have a great track record. Who are you, unknown hater?
I'm not an unknown hater. I'm a man who disagrees with you, so you make me a hater.
You disagree with me? How? By trying to denigrate everything I've achieved without knowing what I've achieved because you've read garbage on the internet? You know nothing.
You
know nothing. You're a zero. Tell me I'll tell you what. You know everything about me. Tell me what you've achieved. Give me an example of one thing you have written that I should read.
I went to medical school. I trained at one of the most great...
Did you? You trained? And what are you doing with your medical school degree?
What do you care?
What do I care? You're holding yourself up as a great role model of a hero. Tell me what you do in medicine.
I'm working as a physician. It's what I do.
So what? Because you're peddling drugs to people, that makes you a healer?
Are you?
Because you peddle drugs to people, you look people's charts on the wall, and you call yourself a healer? You're a drug pusher.
I'm a drug pusher.
A crack dealer in Baltimore is to be more respected than most doctors today. At least they call themselves drug dealers. You're a drug pusher. That's all you are with a medical degree. What, because you wear a stethoscope that makes you into a healer?
And the idea that you...
That's all. We got a real hater there, a wonderful one. Oh, I feel much better. Let him go home now and hate himself a little bit more. He's just jealous of me. It's that simple. He cannot believe that I have a national audience because I'm a better man than he is with a better education and better, productivity. He thinks being a medical doctor makes him a healer. There's a little difference between medicine and healing, isn't there? Ask anybody who knows anything about the difference between medicine and healing. Now, it's true that burn, cut, and poison is one theory of medicine, and it works in many cases, and God bless them for being able to burn, cut, and poison things, but not everyone needs to be burned, cut, and poisoned in order to be healed. And unfortunately, most people who go into medicine today go into it only for the money, nothing else. So in the beginning of the show, we were talking about what is a hero and what is fame. They're not one and the same. That was a very important differential that I attempted to answer, and I didn't get to really answering it. Why was that triggered? Why was that triggered? Because you take a man as mentally imbalanced as Bruce Jenner, a man with such an ego, a need to be looked at no matter what he does, and you're confusing him with a hero? And ESPN calls him a hero instead of what he is? A publicity madman? Well, it makes me think about who are the real heroes, because there are certainly forgotten heroes in this country, and what comes to mind immediately are the silent warriors that we have. They come first. The silent doctors working in obscurity who are saving people as we speak. The silent teachers who have to work under the most horrendous conditions in this country. Yeah, you name it. The silent social workers. The silenced police. There are heroes. There are national heroes. Certainly not someone that Barry Diller would hold up as a role model. Certainly not someone that Katzenberg would think a movie should be made of. That's the tragedy. I also want to talk about the tragedy of sexual reassignment surgery and the history of it. There's a great article on it on WorldNet Daily, The Dark Untold Story of Transgenderism. And what you don't know is that in follow-up studies, there is a disastrous track record of people who go through such surgery. Despite the lies of the media, the follow-up has shown severe depression and severe illness of one kind or another after such sex reassignment surgery. And you have to look at the actual evidence, by the way. Dr. Paul McHugh, a former psychiatrist in chief at Johns Hopkins, and the author of a great book called Try to Remember, Psychiatry's Clash Over Meaning, Memory, and Mind, says that the heart of the problem is confusion over the nature of the transgendered. He said in a Wall Street Journal commentary, sex change is biologically impossible. And he cited a 2011 study at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden, which followed 324 people for up to 30 years who had sex reassignment surgery. Guess what they found? Just what you'd expect. Not what CNN would tell you about the happy lives they have, but the study showed that about 10 years after the surgery, transgender people began to have increased mental difficulties. As they progressed through life, their suicide mortality rose almost 20 times above the comparable non-transgender population. McHugh points to the data as evidence that the high suicide rate trumps the typical surgery prescription propagated by many as the answer to gender confusion. Dr. McHugh points his finger at the everything is normal movement for allowing, even advocating for this tragedy that is being exacted on the transgendered population, now cluttered with casualties of the sexual revolution. He says that the transgendered suffer assumption disorder, much like other amorphic disorders such as anorexia. He said the difference is that body parts are not amputated in an effort to cure other assumption disorder. But he said for the transgendered, this argument holds that one's feelings of gender is a conscious, subjective sense that being in one's mind cannot be questioned by others. The individual often seeks not just society's tolerance of this personal truth, quote unquote, but affirmation of it. And he said here rests the support for transgender equality, the demands for government payment for medical and surgical treatments, and for access to all sex-based public roles and privileges. Dr. McHugh adds that just as it is incumbent upon the medical community to begin to speak the truth on this matter, it is equally incumbent upon the mental health community to challenge the concept that what is in the mind can never be questioned. That's absurd. He said disorders of consciousness, after all, represent psychiatry's domain. Declaring them off limits would eliminate the entire field of psychiatry. But that is exactly what Massachusetts, California, and New Jersey have already done. Even upon parental request, mental health professionals in those states are banned from trying to help children in crisis regain their natural feelings of gender. Instead, they are told to refer these children to endocrinologists to prescribe gender-bending, gender-delaying hormone treatments, which obviously still do not address the fatal psychological components that lead to the dramatic increases in depression and suicide. Well, I can read more from the article, and there's more data of universities that actually track those who forewent gender reassignment. And they said that 70% to 80% of those who face the confusing identity crisis but do not have the surgery report that their feelings dissipate over time. Johns Hopkins ended its sexual reassignment surgery in 1970 for the above reasons. And yet, you would think that this egomaniac, Bruce Jenner, this egomaniac Bruce Jenner is a cultural hero because of the vermin in the media. Well, I couldn't let that go by. It's sickening. No one wishes harm upon people who suffer such disorders. No one says they shouldn't be allowed to act it out if they wish. But please don't tell me they're heroes, because they're the opposite of what a hero is. A hero actually, if I must tell you, fights certain impulses. A hero suppresses certain urges. A hero, you ask anyone in warfare, ask anyone in sports what that means. If a man is fighting in a ring as a boxer, and he's taking blow upon blow while delivering blow upon the opponent, he has trained his mind to ignore the pain of that punch. Or each time he was punched, he would wince and go down. So he's trained his mind not to feel the pain of that punch, just as you have learned to not feel the pains that you're going to experience along the road of life. That's the norm. The norm is to know that you're going to walk on rocks. The norm is to know that you're going to have pain in your life on a daily basis. Psychological pain, physical pain, emotional pain. You're going to have it, but you got to learn how to cope with it, not to pretend it doesn't exist. And not to say to yourself, well, I have a right to act out everything that I feel. This is an extension of the hippie movement of if it feels good, do it. Or why not do it in the road? And here we are many years later. If it feels good, do it. Why not do it in the road? I'll be right back.